as we're processing different emotions that I find to be common to everybody, the whole goal is to take them in control and be the boss of them instead of them being the boss of us. We did this last week. We're going to do it again. Just look up there. Look up at the top of that dome. Yours, not mine, yours. Yours. And just say, you ain't the boss of me. That was not the participation I was looking for. Louder. Everybody at once. Look up there and say, you ain't the boss of me. That's right. You have made decisions that cause a specific emotion. You have gone through different things that have caused a specific emotion. You have experienced loss that caused this emotion. It's an emotion that I think is common to all of us. It's one that we don't like, but we often live in. And that emotion is simply the emotion of disappointment. And that's the one that I want to tackle today, entitled Dealing with Disappointment. Because I think that it's okay to have moments where we're disappointed as long as we don't stay disappointed. And as I look out across the emotional state, if you will, of our society right now, I think that we have had people who experience micro disappointments that they have allowed to become macro attitudes. And so now we live under this weird, upset, sad, discouraged, disappointed life, and yet we live in a place where we have more than every single person on planet Earth, and yet to me, I find people living in disappointment. And so I want to deal with that, and I want to help you to combat the disappointment that you feel, because I find too many Christians in the church who are saved, going to heaven, yet they live like they're going to hell, and by that I mean they don't have any happiness, they don't have any joy, and they're still in bondage, and they're still enslaved, and they still are living in such a place where I'm like, man, I don't even want to be around you. You know some people like that? You're like, man, are we wallowing again? We wallowed yesterday. We've already talked about this. You're just festering in it now. You're just a big, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm saying we have to have better self-management of this personally so that we can deal with it, so that disappointment doesn't take control of our very lives. You tracking with me so far? I want to take you to a story that has some disappointment laced all throughout in it as our launching pad for this particular topic. It's from the story of Paul in the book of Acts, chapter 27. And Paul is headed to Rome. So he's leaving one place, he's going to another place, and the mode of transportation back then is boat, and he has to cross the Mediterranean Sea to get to Italy. And so what happens is he boards a ship with a bunch of prisoners. And I want to pick up the story right there. Acts 27 verse 1 says, when it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius. The problem is, it gets kind of rocky out there on the sea. So they decide to sail from the port. They're headed to Rome. They're out there in the sea. And then a storm starts to brew. The winds are a little choppy. It's the time of year, actually the same month we're in right now, October, where all of the weather patterns start to change. And Paul knows it because he's sailed many, many miles already. And so he gives a little speech to the people. There's 276 men on board, and he's a prisoner. So he has no influence, but he's just trying to warn them of what's going to happen. Let me pick up the story right there. He says, so Paul warned them, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be dangerous and bring great loss to the ship and the cargo and to our own lives. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot, the captain of the ship, and the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete facing both southwest and northwest. Well, here's what happens. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. So they weighed up the anchors, and they sailed along the shore of Crete. But before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. A storm they didn't see coming, a storm that they weren't looking at, pops up after they decide to do it anyway, even though Paul warns them not to, and now they are driven by it and they can't fight it, and there's no motor on the back of the boat. They've got, some oars and some rudders and some sails, so they are just basically a slave to the storm. And so they're driven along, and it gets worse. As we passed to the lee of a small island, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard, and they passed ropes underneath the ship itself to hold it all together because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. And we took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, so we've been fighting a storm, not 1 day, not 2 days, but 3 days straight now. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, so they never saw sunshine. They couldn't see nighttime. It's just storm for many days. So get the imagery right. It's just a giant storm. Look at their emotional disposition right here. We finally gave up all hope of being saved. The men on the ship give up all hope. When you give up all hope, you are disappointed. When you give up all hope, you're upset. When you give up all hope, you're now sad. When you give up all hope, you're so discouraged you don't see a way out. They are so disappointed with what has happened. And here's what I want to do. I want to show you the reason they're disappointed by showing you exactly what happens in disappointment. You can apply this to every area of your life. I'm just going to give you the reasons that disappointment occurs. There are three things at play. The first is expectation. Expectation is a reality. Expectation, when you do anything in life, you are expecting something. Let's give it an example to root this. Let's say that you are going through the Starbucks drive-thru, and you order your specific, very complicated drink, and you are expecting that quad shot, venti latte, no whip, skinny with whatever, and you're expecting that first sip to be what you've wanted since you woke up and it's 10 a.m. and you hadn't had breakfast, and all you want is that sweet taste, the nectar of the gods. And when you receive the drink and you taste the first taste, you realize this is not what you asked for. This is the person behind you's drink. This is not your drink. And so what you expected was yours. Okay, so that's the first thing, expectation. The second thing is reality. The reality is you didn't get your drink. You expected your drink, you didn't get your drink. There is an emotion that connects expectation and reality every single time, and the discrepancy between expectation and reality is disappointment. Some of y'all are good in class, okay? Disappointment. Now, this is going to happen all the time, all the time. Listen to me. This is for the wives. I'm going to talk to you just a minute. When your husband says, me included, that we're going to be home at 5:30, okay. We've set the expectation, have we not? Yes. All right. Now then, 5:20 rolls up, and what do? You're starting to get giddy. You're getting excited. He's going to be here in 10 minutes. He's coming home. Yeah. And 5:25 rolls around. Everything's starting to look nice. Peep through the blinds. Maybe, just maybe he's on his way. 5:30 rolls around. All right. Here we go. 5:45 comes by. Man, where is he? 6 o'clock comes by. Man, I've been waiting 30 minutes now. And by the time 6:30 takes place, man, this is what you walk into right here. Because the expectation was 5:30. That's what we want, right? The reality was 6:30, and the discrepancy between those two is disappointment. This happens all the time. It's happening today. It'll happen right now. Some of y'all expect your team to win this afternoon, and I'm just going to let some of y'all know the expectation, it ain't going to be met with reality. You're going to lose. Your team's going to leave. You're going to be disappointed, okay? You walk into any arena of life, and this is at play constantly. Constantly. Everybody is having to deal with expectation and reality. And when reality never lives up to our expectations, we are disappointed. It is the way that it works. So my question is, what are you disappointed on right now? I see disappointment all over the place because what we do is not only do we have expectations, but expectations usually come in time frames. I want to be married by the time I'm 21. And now you're 30. And it hadn't happened yet. And women think their ovaries are going to shrivel up. And they're like, hey, we got to get the show on the road. And so I expected this. That's not what I received. I want to be a millionaire by 35. It didn't happen, did it? That's what I wanted. That's not what I received. I'm disappointed. What are you expecting right now? And what have you previously expected in the past that you did not receive that created disappointment? Because disappointment is attached to expectation, reality, and time frames. That's what it is. And when we feel these, I'm saying we have to learn how to deal with disappointment. And here's what we think our life is going to look like with God. We want to go from here to there. Okay, this is us. Because now I want to talk about dealing with disappointment when it comes to your relationship with God. Okay? You pray. You get a word from the Lord. You think that, oh my gosh, I have a plan because I feel like this is what God's leading me to do. Whatever it is, this is what we think's happening in our stories. We're going to go from here, linear direction, to there. And we can just forecast it in our brain. One day we're going to look up and we're going to go, God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. We think about it. Wow, as soon as I get there, I'm just too blessed to be stressed. God said it. I believe it. That settles it. I'm just going to go from here to there. And it's just going to be just that simple, right? I mean, that's it. Just like that. And I got to help you because this is what we think is going to happen in our life. Let me show you what actually happens in your story. It looks more like that right there. Okay, this is what actually is going to happen when you get a word from God, when you think you're supposed to do something for the Lord, when you think that what's coming in the future, okay, is going to be linear, you're going to be upset because life is lived like this. There's going to be some times where you're like, wow, this is incredible. Then there's going to be some times you're like, I have no idea how this happened. This doesn't make sense. And that is how we are going to get from here to there. So the first thing I have to let you know, if you're going to deal with disappointment, you have to manage your expectations. You have to manage your expectations with God. Manage your expectations. I'm going to teach you the best of my ability through all this how to do that. The first time I think that we see in this story that they decide to go to Italy. They're going to go from here to there. They think it's that simple. They don't see that a storm's coming. They don't see they're going to lose the lifeboats. They don't see they're going to be out there for 14 long nights. They don't see any of that. They don't see the graph. They just see we're going from this port to Italy, and it's all going to be good. So they have not managed the expectation because as soon as any amount of difficulty and storm comes, they're all messed up and they're ready to give up. We finally gave up hope of being saved. Some decisions are accompanied by disappointment. Some decisions you make will be accompanied by disappointment. Some decisions I make are accompanied by disappointment. And I think that that's what we have to know is that every decision isn't going to be a perfect decision. Every decision we made, when we decided to go to Italy, when we decided to not listen to Paul and do it anyway, that there are some things that we aren't going to get it right 100% of the time. And you have to be okay with that, knowing, I'm just trying to manage your expectations with the graph right now, knowing that you'll do the best you can in the moment that you've got, prayerfully considering all the options available before you, and you'll make decisions. And you'll make good decisions. Good decisions that will surprise you. You won't make good decisions. Good decisions that will disappoint you. And I just want you to remember on the days that you're disappointed in the story that you're living with God, that yeah, there's things you expected that you may not have received on that day, but do not forget that there are days where this was reversed and you expected this and your reality was this because God's grace filled in the gap and He exceeded your expectations and He loved you with grace through all your bad decisions and He saved you anyway. Do not forget that the joy of the Lord is your strength, where you're like, my life isn't going to be worth anything. And God said, yes, it will. Let me come over your decisions. Let me bless your life. That even in the midst of all the bad stuff you've ever done, that God has still exceeded your expectations. So why do we look disappointed with Him when we forget in moments of life where we were so excited in Him about what He did for us? You got to remember there are moments where He has gone way above the line. Look how far you've come already. And so here's what happens in the story. On the 14th night, we were just at day 3 when they gave up. No sun, no stars, storm rage. We finally gave up hope of being saved. We got a long time that they are out there. 14 nights we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea. When about midnight, the sailors sensed that they were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. And a short time later, they took soundings and found it was 90 feet deep. So they're approaching shore here. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and they just prayed for daylight. We just want to make it till tomorrow. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending that they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved. So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. They're all on the ship. There's no lifeboat, no way out. We've thrown the tackle over. The cargo's gone. They've secured ropes all throughout the boat just to hold it together. And now they are experiencing what I call a detour. I did not expect to be detoured in this whole journey. I thought we were going from here to there, making it to Italy, and now they are experiencing a stormy, adverse detour. What have you experienced a detour on in your life? Where you thought that you were going to make it, no problem, and now all of a sudden, you're like, I didn't sign up for this. I did not expect to experience this. Some detours are accompanied by disappointment. But we got to manage our expectations. We got to get better at this. We have to deal with disappointment. And the way I think that you deal with disappointment is you stare at the character of Paul throughout the story. Paul is as cool and calm and collected as anybody has ever been on the boat. You know why I think that he actually is able to manage his own disappointment? Because we never see Paul being disappointed in this whole story. Here it is. I believe that Paul expected the detours. That he was not so naive spiritually to believe that we're just going to make it scot-free. He said, storm, that's par for the course for my life. I mean, I've sailed 4,000 miles at this point. I mean, I've been shipwrecked already. I've been abandoned at points. I've been left for dead. I've been beaten. Oh, I just expected detour. What you think we were just going to arrive, no problem? You think that the call of God on my life is so unimportant that the enemy will not have activity in all of this and not try to prevent me from going to Rome? Oh, I expected this. Listen to me. If we want to mature in the faith and we want to grow in the faith, I need you to be more like Paul, that you just expect some detours, because detours are actually divine direction for your life. Because when you take a detour and you experience disappointment, that's the enemy's way of shutting you down. And I'm trying to get you to expect some setbacks so that you can see it as divine direction in your life. Because Paul's about to minister to a whole island full of people here in a moment that God wanted to get to before he gets to Rome. And so every detour that you face has a purpose attached to it. Every single one. There is not one day that God has gone to sleep and said, y'all figure it out. God is intentional. He is the God of intentionality, meaning that everything he does is with purpose. So when he's doing something, he's doing something. Do you believe that? God is intentional. When he's doing something, he's doing something. But because God's intentional, that also means when he's doing nothing, he's doing something. Because he's doing nothing intentionally. Oh my God. This is encouraging because it means that every single detour that I was not expecting to happen, God intentionally set it up that way. God wants me right here at this time, at this place, on this day. God wants you right where you are right now, that he has intentionally moved you into position and he has you on divine direction, that it is not a detour. And when you start to frame it as this is the divine direction for my life, I'm not disappointed. I'm joyed to be where I am. You see the whole difference in your disposition? Now you've taken control of the emotion and not let the emotion take control of you. So the story keeps going. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. He said, for the last 14 days, you've been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. I tried to exegete that and come up with something brilliant. This is what I came up with. Sometimes you need some comfort food. That's the best I got. Paul looked at all of them. He said, y'all, you hadn't eaten in 2 weeks. No wonder y'all upset. Go eat a meal today if you're feeling disappointed, okay? That's the best I got. That's in the scripture, okay? Take it up with God. After he said this, he took some bread, gave thanks to God in front of them all. He broke it and began to eat, and they were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, there was 276 of them on board, and when they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. Verse 39 says this, when daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea, and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach, but the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship, and in this way, everyone reached land safely. Everyone reached land safely. They lose the ship. They lose the cargo. They lose the lifeboat. They lose everything, and they are now rafting themselves onto shore with planks of wood. And I feel like what this means, A lot of us look at God and go, why have you done this? Why have you taken me here? Why have you allowed all of these things to happen to me? I was one to go from here to there, and I thought we were going to Rome. Rome is your final destination in your story. Rome is the place and the promise that God has put in you. That God will take you to certain places that are destiny-like moments. But here's what I'm saying. That in the story, God did not promise Paul that he would keep the ship. He promised Paul that he would be with Paul wherever he goes. Which means that God never said how he was going to get you into your final destination. He just said that he would. But we like to make all the plans, submit those plans to God and say, will you just follow those for me? If you follow those just right, I'll be happy. God goes, I'm not following anything. Because I have to teach you some things, and I have to get some things out of you that are in you. And there's certain things that you do where we make plans and we hold tightly to those. And what happens is when the plan doesn't come to pass, we go, God, I thought you were good. Why didn't my plan work? And people would ask, does that mean that God's character is in question, that he's not good? I'd say, no. No, it just meant that your expectation and the planning that you had is not a part of the plan that he has for you. And when you expect the unexpected with God, it makes walking with God a whole lot easier. It makes living for God a whole lot better. Here's what I'd say to you, wherever you are right now, your current destination is not your final destination. Your current destination is not your final destination. And the reason I have to bring that up is because some destinations are accompanied with disappointment. God, I'm on Malta. That's the island he lands on. I'm on Malta. Why am I here? What are we doing? And God goes, I just need you to do some stuff for me while you're there. While you're there. Listen to me, if you are in a season where God hasn't showed up in the time frame that you have placed him in, and you are feeling disappointed, and you are still waiting on something to come to pass that you want God to show up on, if you're waiting for marriage, if you're waiting for breakthrough, if you're waiting for the job, if you're waiting for whatever it is that you're waiting for, while you're in this season, don't waste the wait. Because if you waste the waiting, you are wasting your life. And so Paul goes, well, I expected all the detours. I know this is not my final destination. But while I'm here, while I'm at it, while I am a Christ follower in a situation, in a place that I never expected that I would be in my entire life, I might as well do something for him. I might as well put the waiting to use. I might as well actually pray for somebody and choose joy and help. And would you know that Paul goes on to heal an island full of people? He goes, yeah, my final destination was never Malta, but I'm not going to waste the wait. While I'm here, I might as well get to work. While I'm here, I might as well get to stepping, because you only have two options. You can wallow and be disappointed, or you can be useful and be used by God. But you might be waiting, which is not anything that I or you can change. So I might as well tell you, don't waste the wait. Don't waste the wait. Don't waste the wait. What are you waiting on God to do right now that you've been going, I'm just so disappointed, because it's the enemy's way of shutting you down, of getting you to be unuseful and not being able to be active in the kingdom of God? What are you waiting on? And while you wait, you cling to that dream. Don't cling to your plan. Hold loosely to your plans and tightly to your dreams. And you won't be disappointed, but while you wait, get to work. get to stepping. Get moving. Get yourself in gear, because God has divinely directed you where you are right now. And it's not just a detour, it is a purpose-fueled stop for your life. Don't waste the wait. And I want to encourage some people who are ready to throw in the towel. Can you imagine being on that ship? The whole thing has come apart. It's totally blasted. 120 feet of water, 90 feet of water. They run into a sandbar, ship falls apart, and they jump overboard. And they instruct everybody, you got to swim if you can, and if you can't, grab something that floats and get on the island. Can you imagine some of those who are just so disappointed, going, I'm just ready to give up. Not realizing that they've come through 14 nights at sea. They've come through all of this. They've swam 500 yards. They have gone up and down sideways, and yet they are now getting closer to shallow water. I feel like the Lord is saying to some people, don't you drown in shallow water. It's only 2 feet deep. It's not as deep as you think it is. It's not as bad as you think it is. Don't you go through all you went through. There's more in you than you think. And don't you let the disappointment of all that you thought God would do, of where He would take you, of how He would speak to you, of what He would provide for you, allow you to get caught up in giving up. Listen, the prisoners just had to stand, and they felt the beach right underneath them and walked up. It takes a lot to be you. There's some things that some people have gone through they never thought they would have made it through. There's some things that you've been through, you go, I can't believe we survived the shipwreck. I can't believe. And now we're going to get so mentally disappointed that we feel like we're ready to give up right now. It is my job to tell you, don't you dare give up. You just stand up. You stand up right where you are. Paul writes, out of this experience and others, he says, and when you've done everything that you know to do, stand. When you've done everything that you know that you can do, putting on the full armor of God, you stand up. Stand firmly then in the faith that He has given you. That you arrive to places, to people, to situations that you never thought that you would encounter. And I'm just reminding you, look at all that God has already done in your past. And if He can do all that, there's not one thing you're going to face in the future that He cannot do for you. Why, Alan? Why all this? I wish I had the solution for you today. The best I've got is James. And all he says is, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials and sufferings of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, so that you would be whole, mature, complete, lacking nothing. I wish it were that easy to go from here to there. I'm just trying to manage your expectations that your faith will be tested. And when you start to expect the unexpected with God, and you start to realize that there's no way that I can predict how the story is going to come to pass, then you start to realize this is the testing of my faith which produces perseverance. And here's what I'd say to you. Whoever is in a current situation that's not your final destination, Paul knew he wasn't supposed to stay on Malta. Paul knew that was not his end goal. Paul knew that Malta was not the destiny for his life. And so no matter what it took, he was going to get off that island. He spent a few months there, and there's a ship that showed up, and he said, we're going home, boys. We're going to Rome. That he still had the promise set before him, and he knew where he was headed. Listen to me. Don't you dare stop in Malta. Don't you stop short of where God is wanting to take you. You still hold on to the promise that He has, but you let go of the plan of how He's going to get you there. Some of us who are in need of some sort of miracle, I just need you to get your faith that's being tested and say, I don't know if it's by divine healing or by medicine, but I'm coming out of all this. Some of us who think the marriage is totally over. It's the Malta marriage, an island of destruction. I don't know if it's going to come through counseling. I don't know how it's going to come through restoration, but we're not staying here. We got a future that God has planned for us. You've been through too much. You've lost too much. You've recovered too much for you to stop short of where God is taking you. And disappointment will try to keep you in places that God only designed for you to stop at, not stay at. And He designed you to move on into your future. You stand up. You get up. You pick up your faith with perseverance. And you go, I don't know how we're getting off the island. I don't know if a ship's coming. I don't know if a plane's coming. I don't know how we're getting off. But we're going to make it. We're going to get off. And we are going to walk into the destiny that God has for us. And that is how you combat your disappointment. Because God is always good. And He's always for you. And anything that changes in your story, you just cling to Him and you go, God, I don't know what you're really doing, but I trust you nonetheless. And I still have faith in you nonetheless. No matter what detour, no matter what decision, no matter what destination I'm currently at, I still believe that God is moving and working all things together for our good. Would you stand with me this morning? Thanks for watching. Head over to vividchurch.com so that you can stay updated with all things Vivid Church. Join us in person or online for one of the services so that you can be a part of our Vivid Church family. But don't stop there. Please share this video so that we can help other people live the vivid story that God has for them. Thank you.